What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about DLC possibilities for the Callisto Protocol. So this video is going to contain spoilers. We got to talk about the ending at least a little bit to kind of go over the different options that the game, I would say, leaves us on and could pick up for the story DLC. So if you haven't beaten the game yet and you don't want to know, obviously turn away now. So I have three different options that I think they could go down for the DLC. And I guess it depends kind of on like the budget, how much new things they'd want to do versus kind of repeating assets, right, of the Callisto Protocol. So it depends on how they would do it, but let's go through the three to me. So the first one would be simply picking up literally where the story leaves off, which is Jacob still being left there, right? And he gets the call and she says there could be another way out, and then he gets, kind of jump scared for one last, let's say, scare of the game. I think that one probably makes the most sense, only because, again, you'd already have everything you've built for the Callisto Protocol. So if I'm looking at it from like a developer standpoint, you would probably go through a lot of the same-ish areas, or at least the game would probably start in the exact same spot you ended it, right? So you'd have kind of repeating things there. And the goal of it would most likely be to reunite Jacob with then Danny, right? Getting him off of the prison and then, continuing the story for the second one. And also, again, like, you're playing as the same character you would have already played as, in the base game. That one, maybe more than anything, is probably the reason I think that they would do it, right? It's because you're not going to change. Because my other two ideas would be to play as Danny, right? And I like the idea. I like that they kind of did a send-off, or at least at the end of the game, you think, oh, they're literally passing the baton, and it's going to be her, for the second game. I think a sequel could potentially have Danny as a main character, as a playable character, let's say, and we can talk about that in future videos. But if they didn't want to do that right away now, they could just stick with Jacob, right? Because you have all of the animations to them. We know that there's going to be like more death animations added, but again, I believe those comes with the modes that they're adding. So like the riot mode, the wave-based thing. So that's how you're going to get the death things. Those don't necessarily give us a hint as to what the story DLC is. So that's the first one. Second one would be playing as Danny, again, right at the end of the game. Now this one, again, is probably the least likely, if only because that one probably would be more towards Callisto Protocol 2. However, you could argue that Jacob's, say, escape from the prison could also be the opening of a Callisto Protocol 2. You don't have to make that DLC. I guess that's what my third option is for. But, again, I would like to play as Danny. I think she's a really cool character. But again, just how they end the game, giving it to her, I feel like the plot would kind of be so heavy that it would just be so much going towards a second game rather than a small continuation, let's say, of this one. So the final option would be playing in Europa. And I guess this one would probably be with Danny. And I guess my thinking here is, all right, this would be something kind of neat, kind of new, but it would also have a lot of the same basic features that the Callisto Protocol had. Again, like thinking, well, you're not going to create a brand new game for the DLC, so would you create basically a small little city? Now, we get to see parts of it in a couple of the flashback cutscenes, right? But you don't see, say 2 hours worth, right, where you'd walk around, you'd fight enemies. So the environment would be brand new. You'd be playing with Danny, so it'd be a different character in that case, but she could maybe exhibit a lot of the same behaviors that Jacob did from a gameplay standpoint. And then also from enemies, you would be fighting generally the same kinds. Now, you could have a couple new ones. Maybe you could have some weaker versions ones, because remember, the virus was kind of let off there by accident. So you would be facing similar-ish enemies that you faced in the Callisto Protocol. Also, different from the other ideas I had, this one fits squarely in the game. You're not pushing it forward in any way. You're kind of, I guess you're expanding what you already talked about a little bit in the game. And again, playing it as Danny, I think, makes a lot of sense, right? Because Jacob is kind of left in the dark a lot throughout this game as to what happens there. And, he figures it out. He recalls his memories and all that stuff as the game goes. So it would make sense for her, because she has the experience. She knows what she went through. She's not happy about it. She lost somebody, her sister that she really loved, right? So I think it makes a lot of sense to play as her. And again, this would be almost a prequel, right? But again, these are elements that were throughout the game of what actually happened there. So I think that really fits. That kind of reminds me almost of like The Last of Us and Left Behind, right? Where you place Left Behind. Well, Left Behind obviously also being completely a prequel, but that's only part of it. The rest of it is also in a big chunk of kind of missing time in the game that we know Ellie went through, and Joel was kind of unconscious the whole time, but, you know, we knew Ellie went through it. And if you just play through The Last of Us, it's not that big of a gaping hole, but there is stuff you could play around with there. I kind of see the same things here. There's, you know, they allude to it, Danny's experienced it, but you don't have to do it. But if you did, it would be, you know, new locations, potentially new enemies, new fighting style, perhaps new weapons, you know, whatever you wanted to do, as little or as much as you wanted, and it fits squarely in the game. It wouldn't focus on Jacob getting off and continuing again right where the story left off, and it wouldn't be focusing on Danny as the story left off. You could save both of those parts for the beginning, or then just fully Callisto Protocol 2. So those would be my 3 ideas. I think the Jacob one at the end makes the most sense. It also may anger people the most because that's DLC that's literally picking up when the story ends and continuing it. Then you start to get into the argument of, well, couldn't they have just told that story in the base game? Why do you have to pay, right, for additional story content? That is a really gray area, and some games have made massive mistakes there in the past. I feel like if Callisto Protocol does that, that could be a big problem. So I think to play it the most safe, you probably wouldn't do that one, even though that one makes the most sense. I think the one with Europa, with Danny, is the one that I would personally go with. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. What DLC would you like to see from this game? Make sure you guys are subscribed, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.